I'm Daniel Kopp, and welcome to the Widow Life and Money podcast. As the founder of Wise Stewardship Financial Planning, my journey has been informed by personal loss and a commitment to help others navigate the complexities of financial planning during difficult times. Thank you for joining us and for continuing to be part of this community. Together, let's turn these financial insights into a lasting tribute to those who served and loved. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about the HEART Act and how it works with your SGLI benefits. This is a powerful and maybe even golden opportunity for Gold Star Widow's future. First thing I just want to say is like the idea of, as a Gold Star Widow, you've given so much in service to our country, and the loss of a spouse represents that ultimate sacrifice. While nothing can ever bring that person back, replacing that debt of what you've lost, there are financial tools available to help secure your future and honor your spouse's memory through wise financial planning. So if you received service members group life insurance, SGLI, and or death gratuity benefits, you have a unique opportunity that many people and most financial advisors out there don't often know about. Thanks to some legislation called the HEART Act, passed in 2008, you can put these entire benefits, or up to the full 500,000 plus 100,000, so up to 600,000 currently in 2025, into a type of retirement account, a Roth IRA, individual retirement account. Putting that in could make enormous tax-free benefits and extra dollars for you and your family over time. The idea here is that planting these seeds grows into a mighty tree and giving you and your children and other family members that brighter financial gift. It's that gift of love from your late spouse and ultimately a debt of gratitude from our nation. So SGLI is that life insurance that the military provides for service members. So when the service member dies, the beneficiaries, most often the surviving spouse, receives this insurance money. It's up to 500,000 right now, although service member can opt into less. So whatever that amount was, there's also the death gratuity benefit, special tax-free payment of 100,000 that goes to eligible survivors of the Gold Star widows. Now, sometimes the death gratuity beneficiary is different than SGLI, but assuming that both of them go to the spouse, that's up to 600,000 in this particular case. The one benefit of the death gratuity is it's typically paid out faster within 72 hours of receiving that DD Form 397. So many people will receive this benefit before SGLI. So up to 600,000 can be used for things like funeral costs, daily expenses, helping to replace the income. But because this income comes like life insurance tax-free, there's ability to stretch that tax-free benefit over time. So the Heroes Earning Assistance and Relief Tax Act, the HEART Act, became law in 2008, and Congress created this law specifically to help military families who lost loved ones in service to our country. The law recognized that these families needed special help and deserved special treatment when it comes to taxes and retirement. So it creates these qualified military death benefits. So normally, for instance, in 2024, 2025, most people can only put up to 7,000 a year into an IRA, that individual retirement account that's based on earnings. However, you can, under the HEART Act, put up to the full amount of SGLI and the death gratuity, so up to 600,000, and it would take you many decades to do that otherwise. So this provides a powerful opportunity for tax-free savings. So a Roth IRA, contributions in there have already been taxed. Growth is tax-free, and withdrawals, subject to certain restrictions, are tax-free as well. So once you have that ability to stretch this over your life-changing benefit. So you put the full 600,000 into it. Let's say we let it grow for over 30 years. If your investments earn an average of 7% interest per year, reasonable guess for a long-term investment mix, your 600,000 initial contribution with no withdrawals could grow to over $4.5 million at the end of that 30 years. So for most of the Gold Star widows that we work with here, especially if you have the ability to live off of SPV, DIC, and maybe some other extra income, such as Social Security survivor benefits that your family may be eligible for, funding that up to 600,000 typically covers all of retirement and then some. We mentioned that's that tax-free growth forever, compared to putting the investments into a brokerage account or a taxable savings account where you pay taxes on the interest and the dividends every year, or compared to a traditional IRA where contributions go in tax deductible. It means they weren't taxed. They are taxed when they withdraw. So the HEART Act Roth IRA is tax-free forever. And there's also no required withdrawals. So typically with retirement accounts that are tax deferred, so that traditional IRA or traditional 401k, traditional TSP, the money is taxed when it's taken out. And whether you take it out now or later, most people between ages 73 and 75 are required. So the IRS has some rules, required minimum distributions that you have to take out. Whereas money in a Roth IRA, under current law, there's no required minimum distributions. The money could stay in there tax-free for as long as you like, and then also passes that tax-free growth to your children. For most circumstances right now, your children would have to take the money out at the end of the 10th year, but that still extends that, continue to compound that tax-free growth. The most important thing, though, that I often hear is, well, what happens if I need money in the interim? So you can put that contribution basis in up to $600,000, and you can withdraw that basis up to that $600,000 you put in at any time for any reason without taxes or penalties. So while the Roth IRA is designed for retirement, it does give that safety net for withdrawals along the way. Now, the earnings or the growth portion of that has some restrictions if you withdraw it before age 59 and a half, but the original contribution, that basis, is always available to you. So let me give a quick example. So if you put in 600,000, it grows at 7% for a few years, and then it's now, say, up to 700,000. That 100,000 extra is the growth. Okay, so that could not be taken out prior to 59 and a half without some extra restrictions, penalties, taxes. But the original contribution basis of 600,000 could be taken out. So I'll link to a blog post where we give an example of this, but many of my clients need to take withdrawals, especially in those early years of funding expenses. So give an example of receiving 600,000. The Gold Star Widow in this case is 35. Account grows at 7% a year. And this particular client example, she's going to take out 35,000 a year for the first 10 years. Okay, so supplementing income. At the end of that 10th year, it's still growing. So even after taking 10 years of withdrawal, so we've taken out $350,000, there's still more than $696,000 left in the account. And at that point, let it go back to growing. And by the time that this particular example would be, that Gold Star Widow would be 65, we're still at about $2.7 million there of compounding tax-free growth. So you can take withdrawals as needed to supplement, recognizing that that lowers the ultimate growth of the account. But obviously that goes back to what is important to your financial plan. So let's talk about how to actually do this, the step-by-step guide. Recognize that first you have the timeline. You have 1 year, 12 months from receipt of SGLI benefits. So the date that that fund hits your bank account there. That's a firm based in the legislation deadline, so don't wait. You also don't want to wait until the last minute to actually make the contributions, because sometimes the custodians may have some specific requirements to get it funded. So I would say ideally several months ahead of time, so 9 months, make sure that the process is getting started just in case there's some hiccups or delays along the way. Then you're going to choose your financial institution. You can open a Roth IRA at most banks, credit unions, or investment companies. I typically have clients look for ones that are offering low fees and broad-based investment options. So most of my clients are typically choosing a custodian like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab, and you'd be well served at either of those. At Wise Stewardship, we happen to custody with Schwab to have one relationship there. But especially if you're self-managing the account, that you can choose any of those out there. Now, when you open the account, you want to tell them that you want to make a HEART Act distribution, or a HEART Act contribution. Now, don't be surprised if they've never heard of that before. So, Ted, I'll typically use written correspondence to reference specific legislation, and we'll have an example of this in the blog post that goes along with this. But typically, we're saying something like, in writing to the custodian, my spouse, such and such, was active duty military. When he died on such and such date, as his surviving spouse, I received $500,000 of SGLI and $100,000 DoD death gratuity. In accordance with the Heroes Earning Assistance and Tax Relief Act, or the HEART Act of 2008, I'm contributing a total of $600,000 into my Roth IRA. This is the sum total of the life insurance and death gratuity. The HEART Act permits surviving spouses who receive death gratuities and SGLI death benefits to invest some or all the funds into a Roth IRA, thereby allowing the funds to grow tax-free, including when they were withdrawn or passed on to beneficiaries. Withdrawals are allowed tax-free and without penalty at any time up to the amount of the initial contribution. And then there's a link to some specific pubs, including IRS publication 1015, and then the official HEART Act legislation there. So once you've made the contribution into the account, generally best practice to fund it all at once, just to be able to get the custodian accounting correct. But in most cases, you can plan to use some of those funds as we discussed. From there, you can choose your investments. Now, it's going to be beyond the scope of what we can talk about here, but general education for most of the Gold Star widows that we worked with over the years, because you have that steady inflation-adjusted base of income coming in from SPP, VIDIC, and most likely Social Security survivor benefits, as well as future Social Security considerations, most of that allows you to put the majority of the Roth IRA funds into higher growth potential, which is typically stocks or equities. So most of the time, we'll put the majority of that into work. So somewhere between 70, 80, 90, or even 100% of the funds invested in the Roth IRA for long-term growth in stocks. Typically, we'll use a low-cost, broadly diversified mix. So in other words, we want to kind of own the whole investment market in the U.S. and international, kind of capture that long-term growth potential there. Obviously, consult your qualified professional to be able to consider that. Just be aware that sometimes we've seen investment advisors selling products that are much, much lower risk, but also much, much lower return. Things like fixed index annuities or other annuities that may not be helpful as far as a long-term retirement plan. You're already getting so much guaranteed income, secure income from government sources that it often is best to let the Roth IRA HEART Act money be fully vested in long-term growth potential like stocks as opposed to some other things. A lot more than we can cover here, but those are some broad things to keep in mind. Last part of this then is keeping good records. So you want to save all documentation related to the contribution, including records of the SGLI and death gratuity payment, and then keeping track of what that initial basis is. So if you contribute the $600,000 and then you're taking dollars out when it comes to tax time, making sure that you have appropriate documentation both now and in the future in case questions come up related to withdrawals prior to that age 59 and a half. So obviously making the decision to put up these full benefits, so up to $600,000, a big choice. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that's typical. I'd say that's very common. As someone who's walked this path of grief and brain fog myself, I understand how that thing can cloud thinking and make it difficult. I can even remember times where simple decisions were difficult, forgetting where I'd put things, struggle to remember conversations, feeling exhausted all the time. Academic research, including some studies from organizations like Modern Widows Club, report that more than 9 out of 10 widows experience this kind of brain fog. So again, leaning on other people, helping gather a community around you, working with professionals to help you. Now, understand how this HEART Act can benefit you is just, again, that long-term goal. But that doesn't mean it's the only goal, right? Do you have an emergency fund with several months worth of expenses sitting in a savings account? Are there immediate debts that might be helpful to pay off? Something like high interest rate student loans or consumer debt like credit cards, things like that. Are there other life insurance or other retirement accounts that might be available? So just because you can put all 600,000 doesn't mean that you necessarily should. This is why personal financial planning is more personal than it is numbers, right? The art of financial planning is reflecting all the unique circumstances of your life. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. Also think about your timeline. We mentioned that 12 months, but even if you're older or closer to full retirement, you can still benefit greatly from doing this, especially if you consider the tax-free legacy that could benefit your children or other heirs that you pass on. Professional help can make a lot of sense. During my own grief journey, I leaned on a lot of other people, including in my church, fellow widowed spouses, grief counselor, but I also hired my own financial advisor during that time frame, financial planner who understood deeply those military benefits. So even someone like me who has done the work and known a lot of it, I found it extremely helpful to lean on another professional. So you might find that same. Now, while you don't want to rush many of these decisions, you also don't want to wait too long. It can be difficult to get some of the process going. So leaning on professionals, we'd be happy to help you with that. Recognize that your SGLI and death gratuity benefits represent more than just insurance money. There could be many conflicted feelings about that, right? They represent your spouse's final gift to you and your family. So through the HEART Act, you have the unique opportunity to turn this gift into a lasting financial security that can benefit you and your family, your loved ones for years and years to come. So here at Wise Stewardship Financial Planning, I have the privilege of walking alongside many, many Gold Star widows during one of the most difficult seasons of your lives. So I'm a fellow widower, right? I've lost my wife, Sarah, and I understand some of the challenges, recognizing obviously that everyone's grief journey is unique. And since founding Wise Stewardship more than 6.5 years ago, I've specialized in working with many military families and knowing the grief and the uncertainty and the overwhelm. So the administration that comes along with
Schedule
it.
a no-cost
So we would
consultation there
to learn more about
have the
how we can
privilege
help you.
to help you.
Please also go to
Explain
the
your
show notes for
options.
this episode. We'll have
Not
other
just
links
the
and
financial
resources where we
things,
could
but
be a
also
help to
understanding
you.
the technical
Thank you for listening,
and deep
and we look
understanding
forward
the
to having you
emotional
back
side
in
of
the
money
future
during
episode.
grief.
So if you're considering this, if you could help, we would love to reach out. You can go to wisestewardshipfp.com